You have been told there is a path to spiritual attainment, a gradual climb toward enlightenment. This is a profound error. There is no journey to yourself. The belief in slow progress is the very obstacle that blinds you. I am here to reveal that what you seek is not ahead of you. It is speaking now as your own being. You may have struggled, feeling you advance only to fall back, measuring a growth that never truly satisfies. This is because you are looking to the mind's record of achievement, to a personal sense of improvement. We must turn completely from this. The infinity of God does not unfold in stages. It is, and your recognition of this is, Ness is the only event. This moment, as you listen, is not for gathering more knowledge. It is for yielding the knower. We engage in a sacred act of inner stillness, where the truth of our already perfect oneness is acknowledged, not by you, but within you. This is the great pivot from seeking to being. What you will discover here will shatter the illusion of the seeker. It calls for your utmost attention, not as a student, but as the very presence itself. Listen deeply, then not to words, but to the silence they point to. Join this sacred fellowship of recognition. Subscribe to this channel as an act of consent to your own awakening. And if this truth has touched you, signify your inner agreement by commenting with the number 11, the symbol of the one appearing as the many, a holy affirmation that you are ready. You have believed, perhaps for many years, that your spiritual life is a process of accumulation. You've measured your days by moments of perceived peace, by glimpses of understanding, by the fleeting sense that you are getting better at this. You have kept a mental ledger, noting when you reacted with patience instead of anger, when you felt a surge of compassion, when a meditation felt deep. This ledger, this record of progress, is the very weight that chains you to the treadmill of seeking. It is a subtle and convincing trap, for it dresses the ego in spiritual robes and tells you that you are climbing a mountain, when, in truth, you are simply walking in circles around its base, admiring different views of the same illusion. Consider your own daily experience. You have a quarrel with a loved one. Later, you regret your harsh words, and you resolve to do better. You may even succeed for a time, holding your tongue where before you would have spoken. The mind, the great accountant, immediately records this progress. But what has truly happened? You have exchanged one pattern of behavior for another, but the fundamental source of the reaction, the personal sense of self that feels injured and must defend itself, remains fully intact, merely operating under a new, more socially acceptable policy. This is not spiritual growth. It is the rearrangement of furniture in a prison cell. The cell feels nicer, perhaps, but the walls are as solid as ever. The belief that this personal self can improve itself toward God is like believing a drop of water can, through diligent effort, become the ocean by changing its shape. The drop does not improve into the ocean. It yields its identity as a separate drop and knows itself as the ocean all along. This illusion is perpetuated because it feels so real, so logical. We are trained from birth in the school of linear achievement. We study to gain knowledge. We train to build strength. We save to acquire wealth. It is natural, then, to assume the ultimate goal, God, truth, reality, must also be acquired through similar effort. So we set about our spiritual practices with fervor, adding more minutes of meditation, more chapters of sacred texts, more prayers, more techniques. We are building a staircase to heaven, brick by arduous brick. But I tell you, heaven is not above you. The staircase you are building is a phantom. It leads only to exhaustion and the quiet despair of a seeker who never arrives, for you cannot arrive at what you have never left. Your very sense of being a seeker on a path is the central problem. The moment you conceive of yourself as a person separate from the infinite, needing to traverse time and space to reach it, you have created the very distance you fear. You have objectified God as a destination and yourself as a traveler. This is the mind's ultimate deception. The peace you seek in a future state of enlightenment is the same peace that is the very substance of your being at this instant, obscured only by your frantic search for it elsewhere. It is like a man wearing a golden necklace, searching desperately through his house for it, lamenting his poverty, all the while feeling the weight of the gold against his own chest. His search is not progress. It is a distraction from the ever-present fact. Therefore, we are not here to refine the seeker. We are here to see through the seeker entirely. This seeing is not an achievement. It is a noticing. It is a sudden, shocking relaxation of the entire project of self-improvement. It happens in the space between thoughts, in the moment you cease trying to be spiritual and simply ahari. In that instant of surrender, when the mental accountant is fired, there is no one left to measure progress. There is only what is undeniable, immeasurable, and wholly present. This is not a passive state. It is the most dynamic reality, for it is the source from which all right action, genuine compassion, and true intelligence flow spontaneously without the mediation of a better personal self deciding to be good. So, observe your own inner workings today. Watch how the mind, upon having a moment of clarity or joy, immediately claims it. I had a good meditation. I am advancing. That very claim is the shadow that separates you from the light. The invitation is to let the moment be pure, unclaimed, unrecorded. Let the kindness you express be simply kindness, not a credit to your spiritual account. Let the silence you touch in stillness be simply silence, not a milestone on your path. As you do this, the solidity of the seeker begins to soften. The phantom staircase dissolves. And what remains is what has always been here, the foundational, rock-like reality of your own being, one with the infinite, needing no progress, for it is already the perfected, the complete, the whole. This is the freedom that lies on the other side of abandoning the very concept of spiritual attainment. It is not a freedom you get. It is the freedom you are. For the very moment you release the exhausting pursuit of a future goal, a fundamental reorientation occurs. You are no longer a traveler looking ahead to a distant horizon. You are the very ground upon which the horizon appears. This is not a philosophical abstraction. It is the most practical truth you will ever encounter. When you cease projecting your sense of being onto a future attainment, you naturally fall back, not into inertia, but into the profound, vibrant presence of your own existence. You are not moving toward the goal. The goal, in its truest sense, is the conscious, lived awareness of what you are, here and now. Consider the simple act of breathing. You do not will your lungs to expand and contract. It happens as the natural expression of life itself. Your attention can turn to it, and you may for a moment feel like the one who is breathing, but the process itself is an impersonal, intelligent action. In the same way, your essential being, the I am that you are, is not something you produce. It is the prior condition, the very screen upon which the movie of your personal life plays out. You have been so engrossed in the movie's plot, your struggles, your achievements, your spiritual drama, that you have forgotten the screen. But the screen is not affected by the drama. It remains constant, clear, and present, allowing all images to appear and disappear upon it. To know yourself as this screen is to realize the goal. It is not an attainment. It is a recognition of what has never been absent. Look at your daily anxieties. They are almost universally projections into a future that does not exist, a fear of a difficult conversation tomorrow, a worry over a financial outcome next month, a longing for a different state of being next year. Each of these thoughts pulls your sense of identity away from the solid reality of this moment and into a phantom realm of what if, and if only. In doing so, you feel incomplete, lacking, because you have identified yourself with a story that is not present. The relief you seek does not lie in solving those future problems, for solving one merely invites another. The relief comes when, in a flash of understanding, you see that the you that is worrying is itself part of the mental movie. The real you, the aware presence reading these words, is untouched by those storylines. It is the silent, spacious witness that is aware of the worry. And in that simple, direct awareness, the chains of the future begin to loosen. You are not a character racing toward a finish line. You are the boundless space in which the race appears to occur. This is the great pivot. It is a turning of attention from the object to the subject, from what you are, aware of, to the awareness itself. You are not the thought of peace. You are the consciousness aware of the thought. You are not the emotion of joy or sorrow. You are the knowing space in which these energies rise and fall. This shift is subtle but cataclysmic. It does not change the content of your life immediately. It changes the context entirely. A storm may rage in the sky, but the sky itself is not damaged, nor does it cling to the storm. When you begin to intuit this sky, like nature of your own being, the urgency of seeking dissolves. Why would you seek for what you already fundamentally are? The search was only ever a denial of the present fact, an overlooking of the obvious. Practice, then, is not a means to an end. It is the continual, gentle remembering of this context. It is the sacred act of pausing in the midst of a busy day and asking, to whom is this happening? Not to find an intellectual answer, but to feel back into the source of the question, that which is present before any answer arises. It is to sit quietly and, instead of trying to achieve a silent mind, to simply be the silence that already exists, are prior to the noise of thoughts. In this, you are not building a staircase to a future realization. You are dismantling the illusion that you are at the bottom of one. Each moment of such recognition is a moment lived in the goal, not as a personal achievement, but as the natural state of affairs. The sun does not strive to shine, it is its nature. Your true nature is to be this conscious, aware presence, fully whole, fully complete, lacking nothing. To know this as your immediate reality, not as a future promise, is to be home. And you are always home. You have just been reading the mail from faraway lands and believing you were elsewhere. Put down the mail, be where you are, and see that where you are is what you have been seeking all along. This understanding of being the goal itself, this recognition of your true home, necessitates a complete cessation of the seeking mechanism. It demands a radical halt to the very impulse that scans the horizon for salvation. To shift from seeking to acknowledging is the most profound and practical action you can take. It is not an action of the mind or the will. It is an action of surrender, a letting go into the palpable truth of what is already the case. Seeking is always an activity rooted in the belief of absence. It proclaims, I do not have this, I am not that, and therefore I must strive to acquire it. Acknowledgement in its purest form is the still, silent admission of presence. It says nothing. It simply knows that what is sufficient. You live this dynamic in simpler realms. Imagine you have misplaced your reading glasses. You search frantically through the house, growing more agitated with each passing moment. The search is all-consuming. Then, in a moment of pause, you feel them on top of your head. The search ends instantly. Not because you found them elsewhere, but because you realized they were never truly lost to you. They were merely overlooked. The frantic seeking did not recover the glasses. It was the cessation of that seeking that allowed the already present fact to be acknowledged. Your spiritual striving is precisely that frantic search. You are looking everywhere, in books, in teachers, in practices, for the glasses that are, and have always been, resting on the very seat of your awareness. The call is to stop looking for and start looking from. Look from the standpoint of the awareness that is already aware, and see that everything appears within it. That awareness needs nothing added to it. It is already full, already complete. To acknowledge this is to end the search. This is why so many find the spiritual path frustrating. You apply effort to become effortless. You use the personal I to try and dissolve the personal I. It is a contradiction that can only be resolved by seeing the trap. Your practice of meditation, for instance, can easily become another form of seeking if its goal is to achieve a special state of quiet. You sit and you wait for peace to arrive. You judge the noisy sessions as failures and the quiet ones as successes. This is the seeker at work, measuring and comparing. True acknowledgement in meditation is to sit without any goal whatsoever. It is to be present with whatever arises, the noise, the quiet, the agitation, the boredom, and to realize that the aware space noticing all these transient states is itself untouched, inherently peaceful, and requires no achievement. The peace you seek is the very nature of the awareness that is seeking. It is not a state that comes and goes. It is the constant background. To acknowledge this is to find peace, not as an experience, but as your very ground of being. Carry this into your relationships. You may seek love, approval, or completion from another person. This seeking creates a subtle tension, a neediness that often pushes the very thing you desire further away. It stems from the belief that you are incomplete alone. But what if you paused and acknowledged the love that is already present as the very capacity to feel and give love? This love is not a commodity you lack. It is the substance of your being. When you touch this, even for a moment, your interactions cease to be about extraction and become about sharing from an overflowing fullness. You are no longer a beggar at the door of another's affection. You are the mansion itself, and your engagement becomes an invitation to share in that space. The dynamic shifts entirely because you have shifted from seeking love from the object to acknowledging love as the subject. Therefore, your entire life becomes the arena for this one pivot. Walking down the street, instead of seeking beauty or interest, you acknowledge the capacity to see, to hear, to feel the vibrant aliveness in which the street scene unfolds. Facing a challenge, instead of immediately seeking an escape or a solution, you acknowledge the presence of intelligence itself, not as your personal possession, but as the infinite resource that you are one with. You wait upon it, you listen from it. The answer, then, arises not from the frantic personal mind, but from the depth of stillness. This is not passivity, it is the highest form of intelligent action, because it is action springing from wholeness, not from lack. The seeker is a ghost living in the imagined past and future. Acknowledgement is the reality of life living itself as you, now. When you feel that old, familiar tug of seeking, that feeling that you should be doing more, understanding more, being more spiritual, recognize it not as a call to action, but as the ghost's whisper. Do not fight it. Simply acknowledge the space in which that feeling arises. In that simple, direct noticing, the ghost loses its substance. You are left with what is real, the unadorned, magnificent fact of conscious presence, utterly sufficient, needing nothing, being everything. This is the end of seeking, because you have finally turned around and seen that the treasure was buried not in some distant field, but in the very hand that held the shovel. Open your hand. The seeking was the keeping of the fist clenched. Acknowledgement is the allowing of the palm to open, revealing what was held tight within all along. So you see, the entire structure of seeking collapses when you stand firm in the simple acknowledgement of what is. Yet, a question naturally arises from this stillness. What, then, of practice? What action remains? This is where we uncover the great secret, the true meaning of spiritual practice. It is not an action you perform to gain a result. It is the conscious, deliberate yielding of the performer. It is the sacred art of becoming still, not to achieve stillness, but to expose the one who is striving, and to let that one dissolve in the light of pure awareness. This yielding is not a passive resignation. It is the most dynamic act, for it is the surrender of the illusion of a separate controller, allowing the infinite intelligence of being to flow forth unimpeded. You do not practice to become still. You become still to discover that you are the stillness, and from that discovery, all action proceeds with a grace and authority no personal will could ever muster. Consider the artist lost in the flow of creation. The best work does not come when she is tense, thinking, I must create a masterpiece. I must apply my techniques correctly. It comes when her personal sense of effort recedes, when she yields to the inspiration that moves through her. The brush seems to move itself. The melody writes itself. She has become a clear channel. In that moment, she is not practicing art. She is practicing the yielding of the artist to the art itself. Your life is that canvas, that symphony. The constant mental commentary, the planning, the worrying, the rehearsing, this is the noise of the unyielding I, trying to paint by its own small light. The practice is to set down the brush of personal manipulation and to feel the intelligence that wishes to guide your hand. This is done in stillness. You sit, not to empty the mind by force, but to watch the mind's chaos with a gentle indifference until its claims begin to lose their weight and you sink into the vast quiet beneath them. That quiet is not yours. It is you. Apply this to a moment of intense conflict. Someone speaks a harsh word to you. The immediate, mechanical reaction of the personal self is to defend, to retaliate, to build a case. This reaction is a form of mental noise, a storm on the surface. The practice of yielding the knower happens in the split second before that storm fully forms. It is the conscious pause, not a calculated pause, but a sinking back into the aware space that witnesses the rising anger. In that sinking back, you are not the angry person, you are the awareness of the anger. And from that space, a response may come, or silence may be the answer, but it will not be a reaction from the personal, wounded self. It will carry an authority and a clarity that the personal self could never counterfeit, because it springs from the whole, not the fragment. You have yielded the small knower, the one who knows. It has been wronged, and in that yielding, a greater knowing is allowed to operate. This is the practical core of it all. Every moment of your day is an opportunity for this yielding. You are stuck in traffic, and frustration builds. The practice is not to chant a mantra to cover the frustration. It is to turn your attention inward and ask, to whom is this frustration appearing? Do not answer intellectually. Feel back, feel inward, to the very source of your awareness. Feel the space that contains the frustration. In that simple turning, you are yielding the frustrated person to the aware presence that can contain frustration without being defined by it. You are not trying to change the traffic. You are allowing the traffic and your reaction to it to be seen from a place of profound neutrality. From that place, right action, perhaps a calmer route, perhaps a more patient acceptance, will arise spontaneously without the turmoil of a personal battle. This yielding is the true meditation, and it is a continuous, fluid process not confined to a cushion. It is the secret behind prayer without ceasing. It is an inner posture of constant receptivity, a listening so deep that the listener disappears into the listening. You are not listening for a voice. You are becoming the very capacity for sound, for knowing, for being. The mind, the great knower, is a useful instrument, but a terrible master. It insists on interpreting, managing, and claiming all experience. Your sacred practice is to gently relieve it of its command, not by battling it, but by ceasing to give it your identification. When a thought of lack arises, you yield the thinker of that thought. When a memory of pain surfaces, you yield the one who claims that history. You do not analyze or follow these appearances. You acknowledge them as appearances within your awareness, and you rest as the awareness itself. This rest is the yield, and in this yielding, something miraculous occurs. The sense of a solid, separate self begins to soften and become transparent. You start to sense that you are not the captain frantically steering the ship through a storm, but the very ocean upon which the ship floats, vast, stable, and unaffected by the surface weather. The storms may come and go, but your fundamental nature remains unmoved and clear. This is the fruit of the true practice, not a better captain, but the realization that you were never the ship at all. As the yielding becomes more natural, and the clamor of the personal knower begins to fade into the background, a profound realization dawns. This is not a quiet that you have manufactured, nor is it an experience that belongs to you. It is the revelation of a fundamental oneness that was obscured only by the persistent activity of claiming experience as mine. Awakening, in its essence, is simply this recognition, the clear, unobstructed seeing that the separate I, around which your entire world has revolved, is a phantom, and that what remains when this phantom is seen through is not a void, but a boundless, already perfect wholeness. It is the shocking and yet utterly simple discovery that you are not a fragment-seeking reunion. You are the totality itself, dreaming temporarily of being a fragment. This recognition does not make you special, it unspecializes you. It reveals you as the very ordinary, extraordinary essence of everything you perceive. Let this sink into the marrow of your daily experience. You look at a tree. Normally, there is a swift, unconscious process. The eye sees, the mind labels tree, and a sense of separation is maintained. You hear the tree there. But in a moment of yielded stillness, that mental machinery slows. You may find yourself simply gazing without the label. In that gap, A miracle occurs, the sense of an observer observing an object dissolves. There is just the seeing. The green, the texture, the life, it is not out there. It is appearing within your consciousness. Where do you end and the tree begin? The boundary is seen to be a thought, not a reality. This is not a poetic metaphor. It is a direct perception of non-separation. The tree is not you, but the awareness in which the tree appears is the same awareness that is your very being. This is the already perfect oneness. It is not something to achieve with the tree. It is the fundamental condition to be recognized. The tree, the sky, the other person, all are modulations of the one conscious presence that you are. Now, bring this to your most challenging relationships. You have a profound disagreement with someone. The personal self feels attacked, misunderstood, separate. It builds a fortress of rightness. But what if, in a moment of grace, you yield that fortress? What if you stop rehearsing your argument and simply look at the other person, not as an opponent, but as a manifestation of the same consciousness, looking back at you from a different point of view? The anger, the hurt, the history, these are all content appearing in awareness. Your awareness, their awareness. Is it two? The recognition of oneness does not mean you become a doormat or agree with injustice. It means your response arises from a deeper place than the personal wound. You may speak with firm clarity. It will be free of the poison of separation. You act from the understanding that to harm the other is to harm yourself, not as a moral platitude, but as a biological and spiritual fact of a single organism. The argument is no longer between two isolated selves, but a turbulence within the one field. This changes everything. This recognition dispels the core human loneliness. The feeling of being a separate consciousness, trapped in a body, looking out at an alien world, is the root of all seeking, all fear. Awakening is the end of that loneliness, not because you find company, but because you realize you were never alone to begin with. The very energy of life that animates your body animates the world. The intelligence that coordinates your heartbeat coordinates the orbit of planets. It is the same intelligence appearing in infinite forms. When you sit quietly and feel the life in your hands, you are feeling the same life force that grows the grass. There is no yours and us. There is just it functioning. You are that functioning. This is the already perfect oneness, a seamless garment with no seams. Therefore, the work is not to create unity, but to remove the obstacles to the awareness of unity. The primary obstacle is the silent, persistent assumption of I am, this mind, I am, this history. Every moment of yielding, every instant of turning attention from the object to the subject is the dissolution of that assumption. You are not adding anything. You are subtracting the illusion of separation. And as that illusion thins, your life begins to express this wholeness naturally, spontaneously. Compassion is no longer a duty. It is the obvious response of one part of the body to another. Joy is not a fleeting emotion you chase. It is the native flavor of being itself, sometimes covered over, but always present as the substrate. Even sorrow, when it comes, is seen not as a personal tragedy, but as a wave on the ocean of being, deeply felt, yet not threatening your fundamental nature. You are the ocean, allowing the wave. This is the freedom of the recognition, the freedom to fully experience the play of life without ever being essentially threatened by it, because you know yourself to be the unchanging screen, the vast space, the already perfect, indivisible whole in which the entire magnificent and heartbreaking drama unfolds. You are not a player who might win or lose. You are the stage itself and the play and the very capacity for sight and sound. To see this is to come home, and to realize home was the only place you have ever been. Thus, the recognition of your true nature as this boundless, already complete presence is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of a new way of abiding. It establishes a new center of gravity, not in the mind's conclusions, but in the living, silent fact of awareness itself. From this orientation, every moment becomes an invitation for what we might call the ultimate practice, the sacred act of attention. This is not the strained concentration of the mind trying to grasp or hold onto an object. It is the effortless, relaxed listening that has no object. It is attention turned not outward to the world, nor inward to thought, but back upon its own source. It is listening to the silence within which all sound emerges. This attention is not something you do, it is something you are. To consciously be this listening is to abide as the very reality you have recognized. This is where your daily life is utterly transformed into a continuous sanctuary. You are washing dishes. The old way involved a mind lost in thought about the past or future, perhaps resenting the chore, while the hands moved mechanically. The practice of this sacred attention is to let the mental commentary be, without following it, and to feel the actual experience. Feel the warmth of the water on your skin. Hear the clink of the plates. See the shimmer of the soap bubbles, but go deeper. Who is aware of these sensations? Do not answer with a word. Instead, feel the space of awareness that holds the warmth, the sound, the sight. Rest as that space. In doing so, the activity is no longer a mundane task performed by a separate individual. It becomes a holy expression of the infinite attending to itself through the form of washing dishes. There is no seeker in that moment, only the seamless flow of being in action. The chore may remain, but the suffering around it evaporates, because the one who used to complain has been absorbed into the fullness of the act itself. Apply this to listening to another person speak, especially when what they are saying is difficult to hear. Typically, your attention is split. Part of you hears the words, while a larger part is internally preparing a rebuttal, making judgments, or defending a position. This is the noise of the personal self. The sacred attention is to let those internal preparations rise and fall like static, and to give your full, silent being to the act of listening. Listen not just to the words, but to the silence between them. Listen to the energy, the emotion, the unspoken need behind the speech. Listen so completely that the sense of you as a separate listener dissolves into the listening. In that space, you are not forming a clever response. You are allowing understanding to blossom from a deeper dimension. Your reply, when it comes, will not be your ego's defense, but intelligence speaking through the clear, open channel you have become. This is love in action. The love that is the willingness to be the silent space for another's being to be heard. This attention is also your direct line to guidance and intuitive knowing. You face a dilemma, a choice between paths. The mind, the personal knower, will spin in circles, listing pros and cons, fueled by fear and desire. This mental noise is like static on a radio. The sacred act is to turn the dial away from the static. You sit quietly. You do not demand an answer. You simply become the listening. You attend to the silence within. You feel the weight of the problem, but you feel it from the standpoint of the vastness that can contain it. You are not a small person trying to solve a big problem. You are the infinite container in which the problem appears as a tiny cloud. In that profound, objectless listening, a shift occurs. The answer may not come as a booming voice or a clear sentence. It may come as a sudden, quiet knowing, an undeniable leaning in one direction, or the dissolution of the problem itself, revealing it to be a mirage created by fear. This is intelligence operating from its source, not from the limited database of personal experience. Therefore, let this attention be your constant, gentle practice. When walking, attend to the walking, but more so, attend to the aware presence that is walking. When feeling pain, attend not just to the sensation, but to the boundless awareness that is aware of the sensation, and notice how the awareness itself is never in pain. When joy arises, do not merely cling to the joy. Attend to the silent joy of being aware itself, which is the foundation of all passing emotions. This attention is the final surrender of the seeker, for the seeker is always looking for something. True attention looks from something, from the very source of looking. It is the flame that consumes the last traces of the separate I, not in a dramatic explosion, but in a steady, luminous abiding. To live this way is to find that every breath is a meditation, every sight a revelation, and every sound a confirmation of the silent, listening presence that you are. The world does not change, but your relationship to it is utterly transfigured. You are no longer a tourist in a foreign land, desperately seeking landmarks. You are the very substance of the land, and every step is a homecoming to yourself.